Hi guys, I am Sucheta. I am delighted to present at the Microsoft Purview and Defender Days event here today. I hope everyone is having a great learning experience so far. I wonder why my slides are not working. Okay, there you go. All right, welcome to my session, Integrating Intune with Defender for Endpoint to Enhance Security. In this presentation and demo, I will share insights on how to enhance endpoint security by integrating Microsoft Intune with Defender for Endpoint, focusing on device management and threat protection. I'll cover the benefits and the required configurations. Integrating Intune with Defender for Endpoint provides a unique, unified management experience, allowing security and IT teams to manage device compliance, security policies, and threat protection in one place. So yes, join me here today to explore how to detect threats in real time and implement remediation to safeguard your organization's devices and data while ensuring a robust security posture. Here is a bit about myself. I am a Microsoft MVP in Intune, Azure, and security. I have over 16 years of experience working in large global enterprise IT environments. Currently, I manage an endpoint engineering team in the US in healthcare IT. I specialize in modern management and enterprise mobility, leveraging Azure and Endpoint Configuration Manager. My socials are listed here if you'd like to reach out for technical conversations. And here is the agenda on a very high level. I will start with introducing device management and Intune. And we'll also understand what Defender for Endpoint is. Then I'll talk about the integration of Intune and Defender for Endpoint while expanding upon the security benefits of the integration. Next, I will shed light on how you can leverage the integration. We'll then walk through a real-world example of how threat management takes place with a blend of the controls that we are going to learn about here today. And then I will demo and walk you through the integration and various security aspects within the Defender for Endpoint portal and Intune portal. So starting with an overview of device management and Intune, device management means having controls in place to centrally administer devices, regardless of their physical location. You optimize device features for business use. You deploy and update software on the devices, configure settings, enforce security and policies, and also monitor the devices. Intune is a unified endpoint management solution. It is an Azure cloud-based service that focuses on mobile device management. It integrates tightly with the Microsoft ecosystem. It enables IT to configure and protect all endpoints in one place to provide hybrid work experiences. And the graphic that you see here illustrates key features and benefits and capabilities that Intune has to offer. With that high-level understanding of Intune, let's get an overview of Defender for Endpoint. It is also known as MDE, and I will be referring to it as MDE here onwards. So MDE is a mobile threat defense solution. It is a core part of Microsoft 365 Defender. As you see on the graphic on the left side, M365 Defender combines and orchestrates the capabilities of Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Office 365, and so on. MDE offers threat protection across devices, leveraging threat analytics and automated investigation. It is a comprehensive solution for preventing, protecting from, detecting, and automating the investigation of and response to threats on endpoints. The endpoints include laptops, desktops, phones, tablets, PCs, all the devices that your end users would use to do company work. If you look on the right, that kind of summarizes the several components that define Defender for Endpoint. So we learned that MDE offers advanced threat analytics and automated investigation to manage vulnerabilities. prevent security breaches, and limit their impact. In order to leverage these capabilities of MDE, we can integrate it with Microsoft Intune, and that integration is done via a connector. Now, Intune can integrate with several mobile threat defense partners, but with MDE, we gain a tighter integration since both are native to Microsoft. So we integrate Intune with MDE in order to leverage the threat and vulnerability management capabilities of MDE for enhancing device security. And in upcoming slides, we'll talk more about the benefits of the integration and how device security can actually be strengthened. Now, we can achieve a robust and comprehensive security posture for devices, ensuring better protection against threats, streamlined management, and improved compliance. The integration provides advanced threat protection. Attacks on endpoints are identified and mitigated using behavioral analytics and machine learning. And threats are detected in real time while providing immediate alerts to Intune for swift action. MDE can also automatically initiate remediation actions based on some predefined rules. The integration helps continuously monitor the health and security status of devices and offers analytics and insights into device security posture and vulnerabilities. Then point number 3 here, the integration ensures devices are configured securely with settings enforced through Intune. It can help apply techniques to reduce the attack surface and prevent vulnerabilities from being exploited. Point 4, the setup combines natively with Defender Antivirus to provide robust protection against malware and other threats. It allows for centralized management and enforcement of endpoint protection policies. We can implement policies based on device risk levels determined by MDE, and we'll learn more about this in an upcoming slide. But also, we can adjust access controls dynamically based on real-time risk assessments. And the last point here, we can enforce compliance policies based on security assessments from MDE. Then subsequently, with conditional access, we can block or restrict access to corporate resources for non-compliant or compromised devices. So we can leverage the integration of Intune and MDE to secure endpoints, right? In an enterprise setting, it is imperative to harden the security posture. And we can do that by configuring the controls that you see on the slide here. These are controls you find in the Intune console, and you can better leverage them upon integration of Intune and MDE. We deploy these settings and policies to secure devices and mitigate risk, identify at-risk devices, and remediate and restore them to a compliant or more secure state, and so on. So let's look closely at all these controls. Starting with endpoint detection and response, which is EDR. This is one of the endpoint security controls within the Intune portal. Now, we integrate MDE with Intune with the connector, as we learned previously. But how are devices configured to work with MDE, right? How would MDE be able to monitor these endpoints? The answer is by onboarding the devices to MDE using onboarding packages. We do the onboarding via this section in the Intune portal. The Defender portal also offers settings and controls for device onboarding. There are a few supported onboarding methods such as group policy and scripts, but we can also deploy onboarding policies through Intune to configure and manage devices. Upon onboarding devices to MDE, that is to the Defender portal, we can start to use threat data from those devices. We can take advantage of the EDR capabilities of MDE, which provide advanced attack detections that are near real time and actionable. Security analysts can prioritize alerts effectively, gain visibility into the full scope of a breach, and take response actions to remediate threats. We can track vulnerabilities and security configurations for protection of devices. The next control in Intune is for antivirus. Defender Antivirus is the next generation protection component of MDE. Next generation protection brings technologies like machine learning and cloud infrastructure. You can create and manage discrete group of Defender antivirus settings for managed devices to ensure continuous protection and automated threat responses. The policies contain settings that are relevant for Defender antivirus for Windows and Mac OS devices. Once the device is onboarded, the existing Windows Defender antivirus, which is built in on Windows devices, is configured to work with MDE. Then we have settings in Intune for attack surface reduction, that is ASR. What are attack surfaces? Well, they are the places where your organization is vulnerable to cyber attacks and threats. We must minimize such potential entry points for attackers. MDE includes several capabilities to help reduce attack surfaces. In the MDE, that is the Defender portal, you can find attack surface reduction recommendations, and I will show that during the demo. Implementing and deploying ASR policies through Intune based on MDE recommendations reduces the areas where your organization is vulnerable to attacks. You can use these ASR policies to manage specific Defender antivirus settings on your Windows devices to lower the exposure level of devices in your org. In Intune, we create ASR rules, such as in the graphic, to deploy to Windows devices. ASR rules target behaviors that malware and malicious apps typically use to infect computers. As an example, executable files used in, say, Office applications that attempt to download or run suspicious scripts. So you can minimize that impact with these policies. Next up is security tasks in Intune. These facilitate leveraging MDE's threat and vulnerability management capabilities, which provide device weakness-related recommendations. Based on the recommendations, security admins can create remediation requests. These requests are reflected in the Intune portal under the security tasks section so that Intune admins can actually act upon those and remediate issues with, say, deployments to devices via the Intune portal. So basically, security tasks help guide specific remediation efforts. We'll learn more about this during the demo. Now, MDE risk level detection, it's important to understand this for understanding the compliance and configuration policies that I'll be talking about next. So upon onboarding your devices to MDE, it continuously monitors the devices for threats and vulnerabilities. It evaluates how risky the devices are based on factors such as malware detections, configuration weaknesses, and so on. MDE then assigns each device a risk level, low, medium, or high, reflecting its overall security posture. You need to understand this risk level detection capability to better implement and leverage how MDE compliance policies and conditional access policies can work together to, for comprehensive endpoint protection. And in the next couple slides, we'll get an overview of compliance and conditional access policies and subsequently learn how these controls together help secure devices. So device compliance. Now, before I talk about how device compliance and MDE work hand in hand, let me briefly explain what device compliance policies in Intune are. Compliance policies are rules or checks. They define the rules and settings that devices must meet to be compliant. Examples include Windows devices should be at a minimum OS version, for instance, in order to be compliant. Or in case of cell phones, they shouldn't be jailbroken in order to be compliant. You can also restore compliance. In case of our Windows device example, deploy an upgrade to the device. In case of the jailbroken phone example, retire the device from Intune. For risky non-compliant devices, MDE can automatically initiate remediation actions based on predefined rules. It can quarantine malware, it can terminate suspicious processes, and so on. Now let's look at how compliance policies and MDE work together. Say a particular Windows device in the environment is not at a minimum OS level that you desire, then you can have that device automatically flagged as being non-compliant using a combination of two things. One will be your compliance policy setting, and the second is the risk level that MDE sets on the device based on what we learned on the earlier slide. So basically, you can configure a compliance policy to consider a device's MDE risk level. You set a policy that marks a device non-compliant if its risk level is high, medium, or high. Does the compliance policies in Intune work closely with MDE to enhance device security by detecting risks? Additionally, these compliance policies can be further combined with conditional access, which can then block devices that are non-compliant. So let's dive into that next. We configure conditional access policies to ensure that only authorized users and devices can access sensitive data and applications under specific conditions. With conditional access policies, your access is based on certain conditions. These policies at their simplest form are like if-then statements. For example, if a device accessing company resources is compliant based on the policies that we set and the MDE risk level, then you grant access. You specify the conditions. With conditional access, you can enforce compliance that we reviewed in the previous slide. In our example of the Windows device that is non-compliant because it is not at the desired OS level, we can actually block or restrict access to company resources on that particular non-compliant device with the help of these conditional access policies. And as such, the compliance and conditional access policies in Intune work very closely with MDE to enhance device security by detecting risks and blocking non-compliant devices. Now, so far, we learned about the integration of Intune and MDE, along with the different controls in Intune that you can leverage to secure endpoints. Let us put some of that in action and look at a real-world scenario on a user's mobile device and see how protection is implemented with the integration setup if the mobile device is infected with malware. So assume this user's phone that accesses company resources, such as Word, Excel, Outlook, or Teams, is compromised. So considering we have MDE implementation in place, the mobile threat defense partner, that is MDE, which is constantly monitoring the device due to EDR, detects that this device is infected or has malware. This is near real-time threat detection. Now, because MDE identifies this risk, it assigns a specific risk level to the device, perhaps assigning it as a high-risk device. If we have set compliance policies to flag the device as non-compliant, if the risk level is high, then this device will immediately be marked as non-compliant in Intune. This is an automated action. Now, if we have also set conditional access policies to block access to company resources for non-compliant devices, then conditional access will prevent the user from accessing these apps on the infected mobile. And then access is restored only after the device is remediated or the malware is removed. So that's like a real life scenario that hopefully you can relate to. All right, with that, we come to the demo part. Most fun. I know most people are excited about the demo. I'm going to start the demo with the Defender portal here. So in the Defender portal, if you go right below down to settings, this is basically where in the endpoint section, you have an option to integrate Defender with Intune. And that option is right here. the Microsoft Intune connection. You need to toggle that on to be able to integrate Intune with Defender. And this is on the Defender side, but on the Intune side, if we go into endpoint security, down to Defender for Endpoint, you see this connector status is enabled. Initially, it won't be. If you're doing it for the first time, you would see it as being available because you set that toggle button on the Defender side, and then you make your setting changes here for however you want to configure these other compliance policy evaluation and app protection policy evaluation settings. And then once you save, your connector will be enabled. So that's basically how you would integrate Defender and Intune. Once you do that, you go into EDR. And in EDR, here is where you will onboard all your organizational devices so that they start talking to MDE and MDE starts to monitor them. Now, this is a policy that I've created, but depending on your organization, you may want to have different policies or have a single policy. But I'll show you that on the Defender side, where if we go down here, this is the Defenders for endpoint side where you would find your settings for the onboarding. So basically, this particular deployment method section gives you the settings in the group policy method or endpoint configuration manager or a script, or Intune like we are doing right now. So once that is done, you go back. I'm going to go back here. So once that is done, like I said, Defender is going to start monitoring your devices. And then antivirus is something that you would configure also, because upon onboarding the devices, the built-in Defender antivirus is leveraged by MDE. So you would come here, you would do your antivirus settings for the Defender antivirus. And once that is done, and once Defender starts to monitor your devices, you can actually see data under this endpoint section here. So this basically is the Defender for Endpoint section within the Defender portal. And if you go into vulnerability management recommendations, this is where Defender will start to give you recommendations on the devices that you have onboarded. So like this is a great example where it is telling me that the Windows machine that I've onboarded needs to be updated for the OS level. So these are some recommendations that the security team and the Intune admins can work together on to enhance security. And there's another thing in here that I want to show, which is under security controls, we have attack surface reduction. So if you apply that filter, it's actually going to show you recommendations specific to reducing your attack surfaces. So this is a good example, the first one here, which Defender is telling you that you actually could create policies for this, which is to block all Office applications from creating child processes. So what I would do in my Intune portal in the attack surface reduction area is actually create a policy for that. So I already have one created here, the Windows ASR Office Rule 1, that's just a name that I gave to it. But if you look at the settings, I'm actually blocking Office applications from creating child processes. And the way things work in Intune, you cannot just create a policy and leave it alone. You actually have to assign a particular device group to it. Here I have not assigned, but that's what you would typically do for deployment. So once that is done, I'm going to go back here. So let me remove the filter real quick. The other thing I want to show about the recommendations is how you can create security tasks. We learned about security tasks on one of the slides. So this particular recommendation, update Microsoft Windows 10, if I click on that, it actually gives me an option to request recommendation. If I do that, it also gives me an option to say create that recommendation within Intune. So if I really did that, I would see that here in the security task section right here. So this would get auto-generated, and this is where security tasks help guide your workflow for work in between the security team and the Intune admins. And this basically will be created so the Intune team can take action on it. It gives you the remediation steps as outlined in the Defender portal. So basically, the two portals really work together, basically to enhance security on a very high level. And then the other thing here is device compliance. As far as device compliance goes, you can set compliance policies for your Windows devices, for your Android devices. I have a compliance policy set for my Android device, and if you see, it shows non-compliant. If I say view report, it is going to show me that it is non-compliant, but it doesn't really tell me why is it non-compliant, right? I may have set policies to flag it as non-compliant if it doesn't meet certain requirements or certain checks, but what is that check? What if I want to reverse engineer? Now, this area is not going to give you detailed information, but what you can do is you can go to your devices, and if you can drill down into your device, that is where you're going to see what the problem is. So right here, you get a combination, or depending on what you have set for compliance rules, but this is telling me that this particular item is not compliant, but the default device compliance policy that I have set, my device is compliant with that. So let's see what this really is. And this gives me the main information. So this tells me that the minimum OS version on my Android device is not correct. And that's why it is showing my device as non-compliant. So that's just one of the things that you can, implement and look for and then remediate to better your better the devices in your environment. And then the last thing I have here is conditional access. Also with conditional access, you can create rules and policies to block access, or to just grant limited access, or to just outrightly grant access. You really have flexibility with these options here. And if you also look at the state, you can actually just audit your devices based on the rules that you set. You may not want to outrightly deploy your settings and start blocking devices because that may cause a problem. So you have an option to just audit first, see what effect your settings have on your devices. So you can actually do a report only instead of turning the state on for that particular policy. I have a few policies in here, but I have not really set the status on for those policies. So ideally, I am not leveraging any of these at this point, but you can do that based on the state on or off for your policies. So that's conditional access, and that's what works together with your compliance policies to enforce them and to enhance security for your devices. So to use in combination, this is to use in combination with your MDE, to detect the device's risk level, to mark devices as non-compliant, and to block access in case of threats, that is. So with that, I'm going to go back to my presentation. And let's look at some of the key takeaways here. So we know that securing devices is critical, and integrating Intune with Defender for Endpoint provides that required enhanced security and threat protection for your devices. These combined capabilities of Intune and Defender enable real-time threat detection and automated remediation. It ensures that devices remain secure and compliant with organizational policies while reducing the risk of security breaches. So leverage the integration of Intune and Defender for Endpoint and ensure a robust security posture for your organization's devices. And with that, that's a wrap. I really try to hurry up a little bit here because I know some sessions were running over. But if anyone has any questions, I'm definitely looking forward to those and definitely ready to take those. But yeah, thank you for listening in. Also, a big thanks to our event sponsors and organizers, and everyone speaking and listening in also, really. So yeah, anyone has any questions, feel free to bring them up. No questions?
I see a couple of them in the chat.
Okay, let me look at those. Is it still required to onboard a device to MDE? Yes, it is, because you want to take advantage of the EDR capabilities of Defender. EDR gives you, enhanced detection and response. So to leverage that, your devices must talk to Defender, and Defender is then going to start monitoring them and assign those risk levels that I was talking about. So yes, just the connector to Intune and Defender is not going to cut it. You need to have your devices onboarded. Okay, the next one. Okay, I think from Pura with just a comment. Thank you for that. What other questions do we have in here? I know MDE can onboard servers, but can Intune manage servers both in the cloud and on-prem? If so, are there any limitations during onboarding or related to the management of the servers? Yes, I think servers has always been a bit of a consideration when it comes to Intune management. Specifically, the older servers, your server 2012s and 2008s, those definitely cannot be managed. The newer servers, those I think can be managed with, say, Arc. You can install Arc on them. And once you have your servers integrated into Intune or managed through Intune, then you may be able to take advantage of, some of the Defender capabilities. I'm not certain on that from a server standpoint, but I'm pretty sure that as far as servers go, you have limited capabilities versus your regular endpoints or regular Windows client devices, if that helps. Is it possible that a device gets onboarded into Intune from two different tenants from different companies? That's a very good question. That makes me think. I think it depends on how your environments are set up, right? You may not be able to do that if you have like a clean environment, but let me think. I believe Defender may have certain criteria to align those devices. And even if you see those instances from two different tenants, you actually will have two different Defender tenants for your two different environments, right? So this scenario I would think is rare. It's not something that would happen on a regular basis or like in a clean environment. Is there any other question here? In M365 E3, can we get the features you shown in the PPT? E3, yes, I would think so. Yes, because mostly with the M365 Personal, you do not get your Defender and Intune capabilities. But with like M365 Business Premium or M365 E3, E5, Intune and Defender are part of those. Okay, any other questions here, or if anyone wants to speak up? Does Intune have any advantage regarding reporting in terms of antivirus scans? Traditionally with MDE, we cannot get reports for antivirus scans performed. Yeah, I think the reports would be limited. You won't get like a full-fledged antivirus scan report in Intune. Yeah, I think Heike responded to that, so thank you. Intune checks into a device to see if it is compliant. How are data privacy of the device maintained? I think that would fall more under the governance section, right? So as long as you have your governance policy set up right, you should be okay. Because I feel your Azure environment overall, you would have settings and configurations done for your devices with regards to, say, data protection or your residency rules for specific locations. So there's nothing in Intune that you would do from that standpoint, but I think it'll be like an overall Azure setting. Any other questions, anyone?
If at all anybody wants, you can just unmute yourself and voice out your question. We still got about a couple of more minutes until the next session starts, so let's make proper usage of that time.
Yeah, I think advanced hunting definitely will give you more information.
So hi Sucheta, I have a quick question here. So as you suggested, like the devices which are onboarded from on Intune, if they want to leverage extra security features which are available with MD, we need to onboard those Intune devices via MD, correct? So, but there could be a scenario where the devices are only onboarded via MD, they don't have Intune in place. So is it vice versa? They want to use some Intune features, so then we need to re-onboard them and connect these two services together like that, or it's just like one way Intune device is onboarded. If they want to leverage any MD features, they need to connect together, and so would like to have some perspective on that.
Yeah, and that's a very good question. So let me share again for a minute. Okay, if you're able to see my screen. Within your Intune portal, if we go back to endpoint security, Defender for Endpoint, see this option, allow Defender for Endpoint to enforce endpoint security configurations. I have it turned on, which means I can actually leverage Defender for Endpoint capabilities and have Defender enforce settings to my devices, regardless of whether they are onboarded into Intune. So if you are not really managing a device through Intune, you can still have Defender enforce security policies onto that device. And that's kind of what it will read here. So Intune can enforce endpoint security profiles and configurations via a supported agent. And the supported agent here is MDE. So that is independent of the device being managed by MDM or configuration manager. So hopefully that answers your question. Have you found managing Intune policies in MDE integrated portal versus the traditional Intune portal? Any strengths, weaknesses in either approach? Yes, I think that's kind of the gist of what I've been talking about, right? With Intune, you have capabilities to enforce security configurations. And there's a blend of those, right? You can actually do configurations for built-in security into your Windows devices, for instance, disk encryption or even firewall. So Intune allows you to configure all of those settings on your Windows devices. But then it also gives you ability to do, say, compliance policies or other endpoint security settings. But with MDE, you get enhanced security just because MDE really has that intelligence and it has the threat and vulnerability management capabilities. It is near real time into detecting issues or malware and alerting. So I think in that example that I was showing, the moment Defender will find out that a mobile device is infected, it is going to alert Intune. So with Intune itself, you can secure devices, but if you integrate it with Defender, you get that enhanced security or some advanced level of security protection that you can do for your devices. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, I think I can still answer questions on chat if you want. And I don't know, I have like 3 more minutes here before the next speaker joins. So